Lovers, happy Sunday!
Hey!
And thank you for joining us. I am here with my co-host, Amy Nasir, and this is 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir. Today is Sunday, September 6th, 2020.
Whoa!
The 250th day of the year. With 116 remaining. 116 days, because it is a leap year. People are out there doing the math saying, wait, but no. 116 days left in 2020. There are 110 shopping days until Christmas. Well, there's 110 days until Christmas. So there's 109 shopping days until Christmas. But most important, first and foremost,
yes.
A number one, top of the list, stealing Frank Sinatra lyrics, 55 days until...
Halloween.
Halloween.
That is right.
55 days to go. We've talked about Halloween before because... for one of us, Halloween is the day. It's the big day. The big, big, big day. And despite my tone of voice, I'm not the guy. No, Halloween is yours.
That is right. It is all mine. It's all mine.
And what Amy is doing with Halloween, you want to know about. Well, some of you
goodness. Do. Well, I started, I don't know, about a month and a half ago. There was this wonderful meme that came up that I shared with so many people, and I got, I don't know, maybe a couple dozen addresses. We're going to be doing a Halloween basket exchange. So basically, kind of as an anticipatory act of goodwill and wonderful friendship, we're going to be exchanging, little gift baskets for Halloween. Because why not?
Why not?
The stores are finally coming out. We're still waiting for Target. Target's a holdover. I don't know why. I don't know why they're so slow, but Michael's is up, pretty much up and running with Halloween. Joann Fabrics, they're a little lagging behind, but of course Big Lots is in the lead with all of the Halloween goodies that you could imagine. There's great prices there.
Yeah, we were bragging on Big Lots last week or the week before.
Yes.
Check them out.
And I just want to give a special shout out to my friend Jo.
Oh my gosh.
One of the items that she sent me.
And so many items.
So many items. Thank you so much. I love this. This particularly I love. It's Santa Muerte. I believe that's how you would say that.
Santa Muerte. Wouldn't that be Saint Death or
Yes.
Holy Death?
Holy Death.
Holy Death, Batman.
It is the best.
It is. It's a prayer candle with death on it.
Prayer to the Holy Death.
What more could you want?
And it goes on and on and on. I invoke the Holy Death. Going on, I humbly ask you to break and destroy all spells and darkness that may present itself before my persona in my home.
That's right.
So
it's for real.
It's for real.
Unless you think it's a bad translation, this is Hecho en Estados Unidos Americana.
Yes.
This is made in America. It's a beauty. This is really something.
It's beautiful. So thank you again, Jo. I'm going to be getting baskets out pretty soon.
In future episodes, we may show off more of what Jo sent. She really outdid herself.
She really did.
In fact, if other people are sending us baskets, you might want to downsize it a little because Amy's not going to be able to send a $300 gift basket to every one of you, but she will send something. So check in with Amy, whether you are a friend of Amy, a friend of the show, or just a friend of Halloween.
Yes.
Check in with Amy on Facebook.
Yes.
Message her, get her publicly, get her on her wall.
Yeah, I will.
Halloween's going to be great.
I will be putting together a Halloween Facebook page for friends. And, we can do perhaps random basket exchanges, perhaps, kind of, by number, however, anonymously, perhaps. So, yeah, it's going to be great fun. I just can't wait. Just cannot wait.
Too much fun. So, on this date, in 1522, Juan Sebastian Ellans completed the first trip around the globe. See, Juan Sebastian was the captain of the ship on the Magellanic Voyage, Magellans Voyage.
Yeah.
it turns out, and we learned this in school, and Lord knows I forgot it until I checked up on it again, Ferdinand Magellan, the man who heroically led the first circumnavigation of the planet Earth, actually didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
He passed away in South America in 1521, and his ships made it back to Spain in 1522 with their cargo of spices and all the reasons why it was compelling to circumnavigate the globe beyond just proving that there was a path to do so.
Yes, he basically, Magellan ran into, he had successfully converted, I don't know, a couple thousand folks in South America, around that area, to Christianity. And he ran into a king of the Magellans, I believe.
And they weren't going for Christianity?
They weren't going for it. So what they did was they got, a bunch of their crew together and went over there and tried to convert them again. And unfortunately, Magellan was then speared with a
poison arrow.
Something.
Shoot that poison arrow through my heart.
So sadly, the main warrior or the king of the Magellans, I believe, kept his body as a war tribute or something like that, a little trinket. So there is no grave for Magellan, sadly.
But what's amazing to me about that story, among the many amazing and heroic things about it, is that the Earth used to be really big.
Mm-hmm.
The world used to be large, and there were all these places that were just a complete mystery. You look at maps from the 1500s, the 1600s, the 1700s, and all the places we had never been, had no idea what was going on there. As recently as the last century, there were still the Marianas Trench and a few places where there were still mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
But now, you just fire up Google Earth.
Yeah.
And fly anywhere you want to go and see anything you want to see.
Now we're kind of discovering perhaps, organisms in, the deep ocean.
Yeah, there's a few nooks and crannies left. And the world is small. But also, because we can do all of these things, not just in terms of space, but in terms of time, life is short. Because even though we live twice as long as they did several hundred years ago, there's so much we can do and so much we want to do.
Yep. Yeah, the choices are pretty much unlimited.
And in accordance with that, today's national holiday. Today is National Fight Procrastination Day.
Fight it.
Or by some calendars, actually the first 2 weeks of September are Fight Procrastination weeks.
Oh, nice.
Some do it 2 days, and some...
You have some time to procrastinate before you start fighting.
That's right.
Okay.
And some of them call it Do It Day, which sounds more fun than fighting procrastination, but it is National Do It Day or National Fight Procrastination Day.
Jennifer says the world has shrunk and expanded at the same time.
That's right.
It's
all in the perspective you take.
Yeah.
The opportunities are endless. And because we don't spend 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day tending the farm or cleaning the house or keeping the factory running,
right,
there's so much we can do in any given day.
Yeah.
In modern times, people fight against the idea of, why do I have to work 40 hours a week? And, it's a luxury that you can do what we can do on 40 hours of work.
Right.
And the salary that can bring. But Jennifer's right. You can look at that from both directions.
And, of course, it could be better. We could be working 3 days a week, making the same or more amount of money if, certain things politically were different. So, yeah.
So usually what I would have done to approach this topic of procrastination and getting things done, not David Allen's book, although that's a good reference for this, but just the idea, would be to go through a number of articles and essays and books that we've already got and some objectivist resources and prune out the good stuff. But frankly, this week I procrastinated.
Oh, really?
And didn't do that pre-work. So I'm going to go through a few of the articles I linked to online and review their points and sort of give the Robert and Amy Nasir take on them.
Before you do, we have Linda is here with us from Cordair.com. Quint Cordair Fine Art Gallery.
Well, I'm going to give you a to-do list regarding the Cordair Fine Art later on.
Okay.
But I'm going to procrastinate on that and dive right into the topic. The first article that I read, which was sitting as a tab on my Safari browser, on my iPad tablet, was a link to an article or essay entitled 10 Ways You're Making Your Life Harder Than It Has to Be.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
Now, what's funny about that, at least to me, I don't know if anybody else would find that funny, is that was a tab on my tablet. Maybe that's why they call it a tablet, is because it's full of tabs. There were 100 tabs open on this tablet.
Only?
And I worked on them this week, and now there's still 50 tabs open. And I've documented which ones I thought would be useful and which ones actually were useful versus the ones I thought would be useful and were absolutely useless by the time I got back to them. And the funny thing about that is, as irresponsible as that is, as reckless, as completely procrastinating as that is.
Irresponsible. You should be in jail.
And yet you chat about this online and everybody's like, 100 tabs? I've got 150 tabs. I've got 180 tabs. I've got 200 tabs. It's something that I'm looking to resolve. There are different people who've taken different approaches to how not to get lost in tabs that you never get back to. Enter your ideas on the comments, and I will be aggregating these. And this will be a future show in terms of strategies for dealing with overwhelm and overload. We talked about that in regard to Jean Maroney Binswanger's content. She's great with that stuff. So going through my iPad, going through my desktop computer, going through the laptop that's actually streaming this show to your waiting ears and eyes, it's amazing how many open loops and open tabs and open things I've got going. So one of them, and the first one that I came back to, was one of the essays I knew I wanted to reference for this show. 10 ways you're making your life harder than it has to be. Now that's a little different topic, but what I care about in this is how it applies to the topic at hand. So this was an essay by Tim Hoch on I think this one was on Thought Catalog. The link is in the show notes. And his first way you're making your life harder than it has to be is you ascribe intent. I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
His example is another driver cuts you off, or your friend never texted you back, or your coworker went to lunch without you, and you assume the worst. You assume intent. You assume they intentionally did that thing and did it to you and knew the impact it would have on you and didn't care.
Right, because, man is malevolent by nature, therefore negative, negative assumptions, negative intent.
Right.
Yep.
And there's more in this list of 10, I'm not going to read them all, that relate to that. Number 2, for example, a way you're making your life harder than it has to be is you're the star of your own movie. Well, that's the exact opposite of what I have told you.
And me too.
One way to make your life easier is to realize you are the star of your own movie. I'm going to get back to that at the end of this episode, because that's not only wrong, it's downright bad.
Right, and it really it goes back to for our philosophy friends. You've got selfishness and you have self-interest and you have values pertaining to other people. That's
right.
Not selfless.
What does Ayn Rand mean by the virtue of selfishness?
Right.
Well, she doesn't mean hedonism, go out and do whatever feels good, and to hell with everybody else.
Right.
Anyway, his explanation for that real quick. It's little wonder that you believe the world revolves around you. After all, you have been the very center of every experience you've ever had. You are the star of your own movie. You wrote the script. You know how you want it to unfold. You even know how you want it to end. See, all of that I agree with. He says, unfortunately, you forgot to give your script to anyone else. As a result, people are unaware of the role they are supposed to play. Then when they screw up their lines, or they fail to fall in love with you, or they don't give you a promotion, your movie is ruined. Now his answer is, and I'm going to quote him here, lose your script. Let someone else star once in a while. Welcome the new characters. Embrace plot twists. Now, I mean, I like the idea of embrace plot twists, but that's so wrong. The answer is to integrate everybody else with your script.
Yes.
Make your script work with their script.
Yeah, I think he's looking for some easy way,
That's right.
some shortcut there. You've got to do some hard thinking about that sort of thing.
But what he does say here, number 3, is you fast forward to apocalypse. You fast forward to the worst possible outcome.
Well, that's awfulizing. Same as assuming negative intent.
Yeah, and people do that. Well, yeah, and the approach he has here is that people do this to be pleasantly surprised when the result is marginally better than total disaster or jail time. and he's right in that negativity only breeds more negativity. It's also a reason we put off doing things. Is because we don't expect the good result, or we're anxious about spending a lot of time on something and not having it work, not having it pay off, having it take longer than we expected.
Yep.
And that's not realistic. Usually when you do something, it works out. You usually get the result. And even when you don't, you get a result, and that becomes part of the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may not be the result you're hoping for, but it will be a result, and it'll be a step forward.
I just read Linda's comment.
Yes, Linda says, I'm a self-professed tab whore.
Tab. Well,
that's quite saucy there, Linda.
Yes. Well, it really makes the point.
Yes.
And that was the funny thing to me, is just there's nothing unusual about what I'm doing, even though I'm aghast with my behavior.
Well, I look at it on my phone. I've got so many tabs open, and someday I'll get around to it, but I have to convince myself that it's not a black mark on my soul. That it's just something that I am going to have to get back to.
Well, but at the same time, one of my lessons here is someday is never. Have you ever looked on your calendar and it was someday?
Yes, all the
Have
time.
you ever reached someday? I can't find someday. I don't know when it is.
It's the 8th day of the week.
8th day of the week. So I'm just determined to close all the tabs, and I'm halfway there.
Yeah,
halfway
good.
there.
Congratulations.
David Allen is so weird.
The guy who wrote
Getting Things Done.
Yes.
He's a mystic, and I don't mean he's religious. I mean he's a real mystic. He believes in all sorts of real weird things, paranormal phenomena and stuff.
Ooh.
Maybe he's right. Just kidding. He's not. But
it's a poltergeist.
But his process, his basic premise. Oh yeah, my hair is still wet. His basic premise. People listening to the podcast are like, I have no idea what they're talking about. Amy is playing with my hat.
Yeah,
so now you're in the loop.
No. It was the poltergeist.
It was the poltergeist playing with my hat, rather.
Yes, obviously.
A ghost, and I have no explanation for it, was playing with my hat. But David Allen's basic premise in Getting Things Done is your brain is a lousy place to store things. Mm-hmm. Your brain is better at thinking than storing. Mm. So it's best not to store, especially to-dos or open loops or tentative data.
Right.
Things that you need to do. Don't store that stuff in your head. Write it down. Get it in a reliable filing system, one you'll get back to. And he's absolutely right about that. You should not have tabs that weigh on you that you know are not in a reliable system that you'll get back to. You won't get back to them. At some point, your computer will crash, and you will be so disappointed and at the same time relieved that those open tabs are not hanging over you like 178 swords of Damocles.
178, not 179.
Well, I'm down to 50, but
okay. Good.
I'm, I don't know if I could call myself a tab whore. I guess I'm a tab gigolo. A tab...
be a tab concubine.
I don't know what the right metaphor is.
Yeah.
Another metaphor I didn't like. So number 5. Number 5 in 10 ways you're making your life harder than it has to be is you are waiting for a sign. You see now why I mentioned someday never comes.
Oh, I thought you meant like Jeff Allen would be waiting for that sign.
Well, Jeff Allen's got a trusted system that gives him a sign.
Okay.
Because when he puts stuff in a file, it's a file to be referred to once a week or once a month. And he doesn't think about it until it's time to go back to that file.
So he does all the organizational work, and then he gives the credit to, unknown forces of the supernatural.
No.
I don't know.
No,
okay.
no. No, the supernatural stuff has nothing to do with getting things done.
Oh, okay.
No,
Good,
you'd have to
good.
listen to interviews to get to that stuff. I just warn people that at some point you might find out about that and think, why did I read this guy's stuff? And because his stuff is like getting through things done in his process has nothing to do with that. Anyway, back to Hoch's article, number 5, you are waiting for a sign. It says, I have a friend who won't make a decision without receiving some sign.
Oh.
I suppose she's waiting on a trumpeted announcement from God. She is constantly paralyzed by a divinity that is neither heavily obscured nor frustratingly tardy. Now, I'm not disavowing, this is him, I'm not disavowing that fate or a higher power plays a role in our lives. Incidentally, I am. And he says, I'm just saying it is better to help shape fate than to be governed by it. No, don't help shape fate. Make fate.
Right.
But either way, don't wait for a sign.
And you
don't wait for someday. And
you don't have to go out and buy a Santa Muerte candle.
Well, no, Santa Muerte will help guide you. I'm serious, because Santa Muerte, Saint Death,
Holy Death.
the Holy Death knows that your life is finite.
That's true.
Your time is finite.
Yeah.
And before he comes to give you his friendly but cold and icy hand to shake, you want to make sure you got done everything you wanted to get done before shedding this mortal coil, whatever that means.
Good. Well, then I'm glad that is absolutely solid.
Right.
Solid mysticism.
So of the 10 ways you're making your life harder than it be, those are the ones I wanted to reference that are related to procrastination. There's a few other interesting ones in there, like you constantly compare your life to others. He points out that Teddy Roosevelt once said, comparison is the thief of joy.
That's a good quote.
No matter where you're at, somebody else has got a bigger, better thing.
Right.
And
it's not so much how much you accumulate, it's how much you enjoy what you have.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's even more than that, though. It's not how well you meet somebody else's standards.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's how well you meet your own standards.
Yes.
And yes. So we'll skip that, the rest of that, because I think we got everything out of that we wanted to get out of it.
Oh, hey, wait a minute. What about the one that says stop, drop, and roll does not work in hell?
Stop, drop, and roll does not work in hell. Remember that, people. Speaking of Santa Muerte.
Yes. Words to live by.
No, actually, that was a church sign Amy saw once that she obviously brings up for no reason.
It was the absolute best.
But it was Amy's favorite church sign ever. Although, if you take that seriously, it's frightening and depressing. And we'll do a religion episode someday, and I'll give my opinion on such things.
Yeah.
But not today.
Not today.
Because today we need to move on to 5 ways you're sabotaging your own life without knowing it. Now, doesn't that sound like the one we just read?
Exactly, and we don't
Exactly.
want to procrastinate about reading this.
That's right.
We don't
so we're
wanna
going to
just-
go through this one, and there's only 5. There's not 10, even though we didn't read all 10 of the last one.
And there's not 20.
And there's not 178. So, real quick, this one came from Cracked Magazine's website.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Cracked Magazine was essentially a goofier but less good rip-off of Mad Magazine.
Right, it's a bit more cynical.
It was.
Yeah.
If you were into Mad Magazine, you probably liked Cracked Magazine, unless you were a Teams kind of person. And then it was, I love the one I love, and I hate the other one. But Cracked Magazine, when the internet became a thing, 5 years ago. Oh, how distorted reality is. Whatever. Cracked Magazine got big for a while as a site with interesting articles.
Yeah.
And they would infuse a certain amount of jocularity and even cynicism into the articles. But they had some really good stuff for a while, between maybe 2010 and 2015. And then they stopped being that big, and you stopped seeing links to them. But for a while, they were great. So this article is from 2014. 5 ways you're sabotaging your own life without knowing it. And here's one of the ones that I want to take a quick look at. Number 5, they count down. So the first one, number 5, focusing on how to accomplish something instead of why. Now the article's really long, and I'm not going to read it all, but I'm going to skip to the last paragraph in that section. It says, so here's the secret, the thing that has been plainly obvious all along. People out there who are accomplishing great things and seem to get 50 hours worth of work done every day, they're doing it because they have a gun to their head, an imaginary gun pressed to their temple all day, every day, and the gun is the why. The gun is the reason. The gun, they know explicitly, and they are connected explicitly to their motivation, to their reason. Incidentally, if you want clarity on that, your next move is to go to Amazon.com and buy this book.
Oh.
And for you people who are listening to podcasters and can't see the title,
Yeah.
and the people on video can't either because I didn't hold it up the right way, The Wise Way to Success and Happiness.
And it's not W-I-S-E, it's W-H-Y-S.
That's right. Because the point is why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And the author is Betsy Speicher, who, if you're in objectivist circles, you know who Betsy Speicher is.
Yes.
If you're not, the last name is S-P-E-I-C-H-E-R. Link to this will be in the show notes. The Wise, W-H-Y-S, that's so clever, The Wise Way to Success and Happiness. So if you find this number 5 here intriguing, the idea that the secret is people who accomplish great things have a gun to their head, metaphorically speaking,
Yep.
you could pick up Betsy Speicher's book and gain extreme clarity on that issue. Me personally, I have a problem with metaphors and similes and narratives. So I have to get past that. It's a pet peeve of mine. Like animated GIF files or GIF files, which I hate, loathe, and despise.
Which we have some here in the chat
People-
on Facebook.
people-
Thank you very much.
People usually post them innocently, but there's a few people on Facebook who knows how deeply and intensely I detest animated GIF files, and
I
they
love
use them
by the
anyway.
way. I love them.
Amy, of course, loves them.
I love them so much. So
What-
bring on the GIFs.
Yeah, I'll explain that someday. There's a compelling reason for it. I'll show you where the animated GIF file touched me when I was a child.
Oh, God.
But we'll move on from there. Number 4 in this article of the 5 ways.
Well, before you get there,
Yes.
we were talking about how to feel like you have a gun to your head. I mean,
Yes.
the only thing I can think of is, and this is what I do, is I set a timer for 15 or 30 minutes. And I basically put myself into a very urgent sort of frame of mind, and I'm going to get it done within that half an hour, or I'm going to get a great chunk of it done in that before that timer goes off.
Yeah, Hourglass method is great.
Yeah.
And they sell those on Amazon. It's great. You can buy, and depending on which strategy you're using, you can get 5 or 15 or 30-minute hourglasses. But timers work too. It's just, if you've got a big fancy desk, you want a big fancy hourglass.
I have too much clutter on mine.
That's right. But yes, of the 5 ways you're sabotaging your own life, focusing on how to accomplish something instead of why. Number 4, not thinking about what part of you will die.
Oh, yeah, I read that, and basically the idea is that you've got to think in terms of replacement values. So you're going to let one value go, let it go, and then you're going to bring in the new value. But you have to make a space in order to fill a space.
Yes. And that's related to number 3, which I especially like. Number 3, pretending you'll magically become someone else.
I like that.
I love that because we set a goal that the present version of me is never and can never accomplish. But I figure, but I'll become that person who will be able to complete that thing by the time. I just see the ... in my head as So he ends that one by saying, the point is, if you're kind of laid back, low energy type today, you're not going to suddenly turn into a human dynamo next year or the year after unless you start doing meth or something. If you have anger issues today, you'll have them 10 years from now.
Yeah.
If you don't know Kung Fu today, you're not going to know it in 2035.
Well, I like the, I think prior to that, oh, go ahead.
Well, he goes on, but
Yeah.
if you're learning Kung Fu today, well, then we've got something.
Yeah.
And then he gives the quoted objection, but I don't want to learn Kung Fu. I just don't have the time. He says, nope, stop. Don't make me backtrack. If you had the gun to your head, you'd goddamn well find the time.
Yeah.
If you can't make yourself start in the next 24 hours, you wouldn't even do it if you had 24 lifetimes. Now, that's extreme because by that logic, you'll never do anything that you can't immediately start right now, which is obviously isn't true. But it takes me back to Anthony Robbins, who once said, you should never leave the site of a decision without taking one concrete step toward the realization of your goal.
Even if it's small.
Anytime you make a decision, do something. Anything, but do something specific, something concrete. David Allen's version of that is always know your next step. And I find using those two approaches is valuable if you do both of them. One, never leave the site of a decision without taking some specific and concrete action toward the attainment of that goal. And two, always know what your next step is. So that when you stop the activity, walk away from it, walk away from the decision, give yourself time to rest, reach the end of your day, you know exactly what you need to do to get that ball rolling again. Know your next step.
Or you could take a very, very minute step and do something that's preparatory. So say if I wanted to become a really excellent alto saxophone player, which I'm not really anymore, or was really, but but it's fun. But you know, if I wanted to do that, if I wanted to play in gigs, if I wanted to play out, if I wanted to do improvisation with people, then I have to start that. And even if I'm not playing, I could at least set out my music stand. I could figure out a space where I could actually sit and set up, you know, and do something preparatory.
But that's not preparatory.
Well,
I mean, you're right,
preparatory
but
in a way, yeah.
in the terms we're talking about, that's not preparation, that's action.
That's true.
That is part of learning to play the saxophone. If you know, and you're planning and organizing, yes, you put that under preparation.
Right.
But in terms of taking action, in terms of your motivation, in terms of keeping yourself going, in terms of making a decision and then following through,
Yeah.
that's not preparation, that's action. That's
Right.
learning to play the saxophone.
And the thing is that it's really important to have a vision. You should have some kind of really good detailed idea in your mind of where you want to be in, say, 5 years after you've practiced, you know, alto saxophone for 5 years. Are you going to be up on stage? Are you going to be performing with people that you know who are also musicians? And, you know, try to fill in that picture. We have a note here from Rob. Hey there, Rob. Thanks for joining us. Never have more than 5 or 6 things on any day's to-do list. You're better off to accomplish 100% of 3 or 4 of those items than just a percentage of a list with 20.
Well, Rob is right, but that is why you need to break things down.
Yep.
Because there are things you want to accomplish you ain't never going to get done in a day. So once you've broken down the plan, you say, well, in regard to that project, in regard to that goal, in regard to learning that piece on the piano, my task for today is this thing.
Yeah.
And then you can complete 100% of that bit.
Right.
Yes, but Rob's absolutely right. You don't want to give yourself an overwhelming list where even if you got 15 things done, you would look at those 100 things and say, oh, yeah, okay, tomorrow's going to be another grind. And what a disappointment. Incidentally, the Cracked magazine article, what I want to know is, did he write this first or did David Allen write his book first? Because the number 2 item is focusing on the whole instead of the next step. So there's that idea of always know what your next step is. The next step, what we're talking about here in the article, is the next step is motivational. The next step is something I can bite and chew, whereas the whole project is just overwhelming.
Right.
I want to learn to play the piano. as opposed to I want to learn to play the first 4 bars of Moonlight Sonata.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that. I can't learn to play the piano. Nobody can learn to play the piano, not unless you see the piano as learning the keys, learning the scales, learning the fingerings,
Right.
learning all
and
the steps.
I like what he said in there about the first steps may just be very boring and maybe just, technical, just practicing like brushing your teeth every day. I think he had a really good analogy in there about your doctor tells you have a chronic condition with bacteria and that you need to do all these steps every single day of your life from now on.
Yes.
And that's brushing your teeth.
Yeah. You don't regard dental care as a crushing burden because you don't sit down every day contemplating the unfathomable moments of teeth brushing you must scale before you die. You only think of it as that thing you do in the morning because you have to, because you don't want your teeth to fall out. You manage the long-term goal, having teeth,
Yeah.
by thinking only of the very manageable daily goal.
Right.
That's what he says.
And
That's good.
that reminds me of, so I started with, I think I may have mentioned this before, I've got a couch to standing workout Facebook page that's private, just, for friends and everything like that. Of course, if anybody's listening, you can certainly reach out to me and I can send you an invite or however. But basically, it's now up to 5 days. Well, this week it's going to be 4 days because of the holiday, but I am getting myself to work out 5 days a week, a half an hour each time on Zoom by presenting myself to the world in ways in which I've never done before, in actually holding an exercise class. And I'm keeping up with this because I have people there who are going to join me, and Robert here joins me, and it's just wonderful. So it was one of these things where just sort of like a brainstorm, like I'm just going to put a Facebook page up out on there into the world and just do it. And I did it. And it's getting easier and easier. And it just reminds me of, we were just talking about teeth and everything. Hopefully by the time when I'm 90, I'll consider myself a success if I have all of my teeth, and I have my original knees and hips.
You can do it.
That will be a great success.
Well, my role model in that regard is my mother.
Mm.
80 years old and still has all of her own dental parts.
Yeah.
She told us when we were children, be true to your teeth or they'll be false to you.
Thank you, Super Sales.
That's right. So that's enough from the 5-item list.
Yeah.
5 ways you're sabotaging your own life.
Mm.
The last item that I wanted to reference real quick was Eric Barker's, why do you read 1,000 things about change and never change?
Mm.
And that's an interesting question to me that I'll be addressing in future episodes because it gets complicated. But he makes 3 points, and we'll do those real quick. In order to actually make changes, first direct the rational mind. Provide crystal clear direction. What looks like resistance is often simply a lack of clarity. Script the critical moves. Don't think big picture. Think in terms of specific behaviors. Point to the destination. Change is easier when you know where you're going and why. We get back to why it's worth it. Number 2, motivate the emotional mind. Focus on emotions. Knowing something isn't enough to cause change. Make people or yourself feel something. Shrink the change. Break down the change so it's not so scary. And when leading a group, cultivate a sense of identity and instill a growth mindset. Believe change is possible. And then number 3, shape the path. What looks like a people problem, for example, is often a situation problem. So tweak the environment. When a situation changes, behavior changes. So change the situation. Build habits, because when a behavior is habitual, it doesn't tax our minds as much. Take a moment and read that one. It's worth a read. It's in the show notes. And we'll be talking about that more in future episodes, not from Eric Barker's perspective, but from the Nasir perspective. Mm-hmm. But I've got a few more thoughts to work on that before I can present it in a comprehensive manner.
Cool.
But that is coming. And I'm not going to procrastinate on that one because I'm going to make the goal clear, specific, actionable, it's going to be good.
It's smart. Yeah.
But my takeaway for this episode is procrastinate later. I find that useful.
I don't find that it's so useful.
I do.
I like the idea of just doing preparatory work, just kind of taking an extremely small step just so that I have, that it hooks me and that I have an interest in it, and it basically hooks me to a vision.
Yes. Yes, that clarity is useful. But I end up getting back to that level we talked about of free will, of volition, of focus. And that one's a challenge. Mm-hmm. I've mentioned John from Facebook online. Wicked smart, refers to himself as the corrector because his grammar and often his reasoning are sharper than most of ours.
Yeah.
But he posted he took basically a survey of people's ideas for getting up in the morning when the alarm clock goes off. My answer was very concrete, which is your alarm clock should not be, or your phone, whatever you're using as an alarm clock, should not be where you can reach it from your bed. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people offered different ideas. And what it brought to mind for me was, and he had the same experience, we will do for our job, for our manager, for our boss, sometimes even for our partner, far more, certainly in terms of meeting deadlines, than we will ever do for ourselves. The family men, family women who are listening, you know what I'm talking about. You will do far more for your children than you will ever do for yourself. And because those are your values, I'm not saying that's not valid, that you are willing to invest time and energy and heart into those things. But the idea that, well, in terms of my own goals, my own values, my own motivation, my own, as we're talking about procrastination, well, that's just in my head. That's just me. Mm-hmm. I want anybody who heard that just now, I want you to be righteously indignant at the idea that you should ever be referred to as just me. That's just me. That's just in my mind. That's just my schedule. That's just my life. That's just my goals. That's just my values. If you ever catch yourself being willing to jump out of bed, throw on some clothes, run out the door because you're late for work and you don't want to let your boss down, but you wouldn't do that for one of your own goals, I want you to get angry about that. I want you to be indignant. And I want you to do right by yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's what I do to myself when I catch myself thinking that way.
But you don't beat yourself up.
I'm not talking about beating yourself up.
No, but you're
if you're prone to that, don't do that.
You're indignant at the idea.
Yes,
if you're
prone to beating
matter.
yourself up, don't beat yourself up. If you're prone to guilt or shame or any of that, that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
No, I'm talking about righteous indignation, and I'm talking about letting that motivate you to be good to yourself.
All right.
My Post-it note for the week actually says, "Who's the boss?"
Oh, okay.
So the Post-it note on my mirror is a reminder that if I have ever worked hard to keep my job or to impress my manager or to not be late for work, I should be doing all those things for my boss. Except right now I don't have a boss.
Well, you do.
I am my boss. For those of you who are still holding down a 9-to-5, I want you to impress the boss inside as much as you do the boss in the corner office.
Oh, I do. I impress myself so much more.
Oh, I know you do. You're awesome.
But it reminds me of the perspective that I had when I was pretty young, and I was a newbie objectivist, and I thought that I always told myself, Amy, you are your own boss, And it's a two-way street. It's not that you go in and you expect, you're just there to appease people. You need to, they need to live up to your standards too. So, yeah, that I am my own entrepreneur in that way, even if I am not an entrepreneur technically. Yeah, it's a very helpful thing, and it certainly helps you get out of that whole duty ethic mentality, and really give yourself the ability to see the meaning in what you're doing, even if you're doing it for somebody else, even if it's not your company. You can change things little by little, and then hopefully you're working with people who are good and who will appreciate goodness. And yeah, but that's another episode. Rob did say that in terms of, I think I asked, has anyone made a big change in life, and how did you do it? He said, be patient. All change is incremental. That's absolutely right. Break it all down.
Well, the only thing I didn't do is come up with a homework assignment for you this week, like I usually do.
I think there's enough homework in this episode without a
but I usually have a single take-home point.
Yeah.
So my homework for you is get a copy of Betsy Speicher's book and read it. Mm-hmm. But also get a copy of Quent Cordair's books.
Yes.
The books that I would recommend to you would be Lunch Break by Quent Cordair, Idolatry Part 1, Genesis by Quent Cordair. Now, why am I holding these books up? Idolatry Part 2, A New Eden by Quent Cordair.
Yep.
Because I just received signed copies of these books. So I want to give a public shout out to Quent Cordair for sending me and a copy of My Kingdom. Some of these books I've already got, but I didn't have signed edition, and some of them I only have on Kindle, and electronic books aren't nearly as much fun.
Right.
So, as always, our heart goes out to Quent and Linda Cordair at Cordair.com.
Yes.
But you guys are the best. Thank you so much for sending these along.
I mean, not only is Quent Cordair an artist, a visual artist, a painter, but he's written all these books that are really fantastic and very original and
inspiring.
Inspiring.
They're joyful. Look at them on Amazon, and you will see what I'm talking about, and then you will order your copies too. So thank you so much, Quent and Linda, for sending those out.
Yes, I'm sure we'll have links.
Thank you note is on its way too, but I couldn't resist saying something publicly because it'll drive more traffic to your website.
Yes, and links in the show notes.
No, seriously, everybody should be going to Cordair.com. They're just the best. So with that said, as always, today's show notes will appear on the notes for this episode within 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes of this show wrapping up.
Okay.
And you can also find past episodes at youtube.com/Robert Nasir. And on my Facebook wall, you can talk about the show, share your ideas, give us episode suggestions.
Yeah.
In the 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir group on Facebook. You can even support the show.
Yes.
And I gotta give love to our supporters at patreon.com/Robert Nasir. If you want to show us some love, you can do that. If you prefer to use another platform for contributions, just send me a message on Facebook.
Yep.
You guys are the best. You really are.
Please help us get this show to be noticed by more people.
Oh yeah, share the show.
Yes.
Yes, share.
On Facebook, and to your friends and family. Send emails to if you like it. And say, for instance, you have some folks, some friends or family who might benefit from what we're saying.
Oh yeah.
Please go ahead and let them know.
We're ready to take it to the next level.
Yes.
Remember I said I can't stand metaphors and similes. If you ever catch me saying take it to the next level, assume there's an imposter here, unless I'm kind of making fun of myself for saying it like I just did. But seriously, we do want to take the show to another level and go from hundreds of views to thousands and from thousands to tens of thousands. So if you want to help make that happen, and thanks especially to Mike. Oh my gosh, Mike Nibel, thank you so much for sharing the show. That was so cool.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Everybody who shares the show, you own my heart.
Yes, and like us on YouTube, and it's great. And if you have a Santa Muerte Holy Death candle, light it.
Light Santa Muerte. Joe, that was so cool.
It's so awesome. I love it.
In another episode, we'll show you more of the things Joe sent along.
Yeah.
It was oh my gosh, a package.
Ah, so good.
But with that said, thank you for joining us. As always, we wish you success. We wish you flourishing. We wish you the motivation to overcome anything that's standing between you and your goals, your dreams, your deadlines. And as always,